letter this weekend. It should have gone out on Sunday. It didn't. Simon, who sends it out, was going on holiday, so he said, I'll send it out when I get back on Friday. But then we found about 50% of people have probably had it anyway on Sunday afternoon, and other people haven't. If you did get it, you would have told you that Liz Opdyke was going to be coming to talk to us about show yoga and give us a sample session. But she's not, because sadly she's got very sad circumstances, she can't make it. But she will be coming another time. But very elegantly, Julie Wilson from Parkinson's UK is stepping into the breach and is going to talk to us about her work as Area Development Manager for Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Bedfordshire in Parkinson's UK. So I think, without any further ado, I will hand over to Julie.
I hate microphones, but I'm going to go with it. I'm slightly going off piece today because I just had a thought about today, and I was like, people come into meetings. Sorry? Oh right, okay, shall I start? Oh right, okay. So we all come to your meetings as staff members, and you really don't know us, and we come in and say we're this big title. So I just really wanted to give you a little bit of insight today about why I do the work that I do, why I'm so passionate about Parkinson's UK, and of course I am going to tell you about what we're doing in the area, because we're doing quite a bit. So I'm Julie and I live alone. I've got a golden retriever, and that will count in a little while when I tell you about things that I do now. The reason that I ended up working as a social worker in the end is actually I had a child that was born with severely deformed legs from the knee down. When he came out, he looked like a frog, basically, and I was quite tearful. New mum, had to quite negotiate quite a lot of things, and I became a carer straight away. I wasn't just a mum, wasn't doing the feeding and the cleaning. I was now doing physio, negotiate about operations and all sorts. Sort of not what you're expecting when you're a new mum. So a couple of years went by, my son got quite big, and actually he needed a wheelchair for a bit. And I went and tried to get one, and they gave me an adult-sized wheelchair, huge thing. Bear in mind this is years ago, but huge thing, and I had to literally pad him out with pillars, and I was like, oh my God, this is awful, like, my child's like this. And I vowed that then I would do something about this injustice that there is when people have conditions that they're living with and they can't get really what they need to help them. And I actually went to university to become a manager, actually, a management degree, but I actually, while I was there, started to do a lot of volunteering, and I became a welfare rights worker. So this is what I started to do. What used to be DLA, Disability Living Allowance, I used to be helping a lot with that. And one thing led to another, and I ended up being this one-woman crusader for everything. Got very passionate, and then I became a social worker. I trained to be a social worker because I really wanted to make a difference. And that's really evolved with what my life is now. After a little while, I became a bit disillusioned with being a social worker because you can't quite do as much as you'd like to do. And I ended up working for Parkinson's UK for 17 years after a couple of other things that I did. And why don't I go? Because I just love the charity and the passion amongst people that help at the groups, that live with Parkinson's and just try and stay well. I can see that we make a difference, I think, and I'm going to talk about that in a little while. So some of the stuff that we've been doing with Watford General is quite amazing, and we've suddenly started to make some inroads there. And sometimes it slowly takes time, and you end up that you, sorry, I'm not really very good with a microphone. I've got a big enough mouth not to have a microphone, but I think you need it.
No, you don't have to use it.
Can you all hear me? No. Is that yes or no? Is that a real no? Yes. Oh right, okay, that's fine then. So what I do in my spare time now, my golden retriever comes into this. I'm a serial volunteer, so again I've been a carer, so I understand the caring role. I also volunteer. My dog and I are therapy dog and owner, and we go into establishments. She's an absolute diva. I needed to do something with that energy and the fact that she really loves to be pampered, so this was ideal. I run tea parties for isolated old people that don't see anyone from 1 month to the next. And so we basically recreate an afternoon tea for them once a month on a Sunday. So that's this weekend. I've had the driver of the Beatles at my tea party. He's very healthy now, but he recounts that. I've got the first RAF photographer that's a woman. So we have a really, really big, wide range of people at those tea parties. And my most boring thing that I do is I do recycling. So I'm the moderator for my area for Free Cycle. So really just wanted to give you a bit of background that I'm just not someone who's not passionate about what they do. I love what I do for Parkinson's. I love being in my community as a volunteer. I believe in you put in and you get out, and that's what you do. And I've made some amazing contacts and friends through what I do. But that's me. I just wanted to not just come in as Julie Wilson, Area Development Manager. Julie Wilson, the human being, is here. So, a little bit about what I do for Parkinson's UK so you get it in context. My role is two-pronged really. I'm the front face for Parkinson's UK, not in terms of a local advisor who you will know already. My job's more developing, so really developing and actually challenging. So it's in two bits. My first bit of my role, the developing bit, is where we go out and we look at communities, what we need to do for people to live well, asking them, and then what we do is we develop that. So I'll talk about Hertfordshire specifically because you don't really want to know about Cambridgeshire. You'll be jealous if I tell you anyway. And you don't want to know about Bedfordshire. It's your place that you want to know about. So in Hertfordshire, it's been very slowly. But what we are doing is working with the health service very closely now, much more closely than they've ever let us work. And we're working with the health service and we're working with exercise and physical activity instructors in the county. What? Someone asked me why, please. Why? Thank you. We're doing that because we know that physical activity is really important for people living with Parkinson's. Regular sustained activity that targets the symptoms will help slow down the progression of Parkinson's. And it's never too late to do it. So if you've been sedentary for lots of years and you start to do exercise, physical activity, it will help. And we would say physical activity, please don't think you've got to get in lycra and be in a gym. That's not what it's about. Yes, it's very good to do targeted exercise, but also even if you're out in your garden, which you don't want to be today, but you will be later, if you're doing that, that still counts as physical activity. You're still moving. You're moving about. Of course, what we want to aim to do is to give you the opportunity for the extra things, those targeted exercises. And I know that you used to have access to something called Stable here. Yeah, but not anymore. And that's what we're trying to work with on this side of the county with the physiotherapy team to try and look at some sort of system again. And my understanding is they are going to have, has anyone heard of PD Warriors? PD Warrior training, some of the physios to start incorporating that into what they're doing. So back to this partnership. Partnership that we've got now at the moment is a steering group. So we've got a big steering group of physical activity instructors, we've got leisure centres, and we've got health professionals on that panel, if you like, on that steering group. What we're aiming to do is that every clinician that sees a patient with Parkinson's, and I don't call you patients, but they will, when they see patients with Parkinson's, they are going to immediately, directly give them access to what's in the community in terms of physical activity. Because we know at the moment it's hit and miss. And if you go in, you're not often told about what's happening around you. We're going to go as far as they can make direct referrals to to the physical activity if you want to go. No one's forcing anyone to go, but what we have found is if you're directly referred, someone is directly referred to a programme and their consultant or their nurse says go, or their physio, they will usually go. It's an encouragement because you're getting medical endorsement to do it. So we're trying to bring that in so that we do that. So this physical activity is incorporated into a health plan. I'm just waiting to hear if I've got £1,000 grant for this county, and what I'm going to be doing with that is looking at transport, because what else people have said worries them about going to physical activities, they actually can't get there. And you were kindly really good at sending my questionnaire back. A lot of people from this branch did. And I was horrified to see that over 70% of people that sent it back said that they would usually not go to something because of transport issues. That's not acceptable. We need people to be able to have that freedom to go and choose to exercise. So we're looking at that as a separate project. Training up perhaps people from the Rotary Club, having them at the Volunteer Bureau, but they actually drive for people that are affected by Parkinson's or living with Parkinson's. We're trying to get a partnership with them at the moment. So that's that bit of work. Is there any questions about that bit of work? That doesn't fit in with your question, does it? Oh, does it? Go on then. So we're working at the moment with the physios, nurses, speech and language therapists. What we're trying to do here in Hertfordshire is have hubs. So it's all quite new, and Rose is on board. Everyone Active gave us a partnership, which you hopefully all know about, which means that you can join any Everyone Active gym, and it's free, and the person that supports you can go free as well. We've just heard that they've given us an extra, because it was only for a year, and they've given us the next year. So it's going again for the next year. So basically, sorry, I do dart around a bit. It's a sort of, I'm just trying to think who I'm right. I definitely don't want to see anyone that's not good. Yeah, we'll do. So what we're trying to do is use those as a hub. So Rose, you've got one in, is it St Albans yours is? Watford. So we've got one at Watford. We're looking at one in Harpenden. We're looking at one in Worcester, which is nowhere near you anyways. Don't worry about it. Bishop Stortford as a starting point. What's a hub? Ruth, what's a hub? Heckle me. Yeah, place where we meet. Yeah, I was asking to ask me. Right. Well, a hub. It's a posh name for a venue where you have most of your activities, i.e. the physical activities. You're having a lot of them in one place. So this means that people are not having to go all over the place to go there. We're going to try and have information stands there that are there all the time. I'm waiting to hear if I've got funding for that on the 1st of March. So that people have this notice board of what's happening. We'll have a really nice brochure kind of thing, the yearbook here. And also now we're encouraging the health professionals, and we may need your help with this, to have clinics at those hubs. On the north side of the county already, they're going to have 2 speech and language therapy courses, and they're also having stable twice a year in these different hubs. We're trying to encourage that model here, and how I think we're going to achieve that is we keep working obviously with the provider, with CLCH, but also we may need your backing. We may need to say, when you go in and see your clinician, ask them, tell them we want it in the community. Oh, it's Central London Health Trust, and they are who provide your services here in West Hertfordshire. Well, because they're the local groups, generally are going to be sort of heading them up. You'll know from your local group anyway that they're there. But we will be promoting them. This is the idea that the clinicians that see you will know about them.
Your neurologist who sees you.
We will be making sure. I mean, Rosa pitching now.
I'll just say we're way off wet this. It's not available now.
No.
It's something that Judy's aiming for as part of the council. It is. So we're saying that. So Judy told me only quite recently about what was going on in Bishop's Stortford. Yes. I said, well, I've got a of that in Watford. And we talked to CLCH run Hearts and Neuroservice. Have you come across them? No. Hearts and Neuroservice are the people, they're based in Parkinson. Yeah. And they provide community physios, there's a nurse there, a Parkinson specialist nurse, they provide dietitians, psychologists, and neurological rehabilitation centre. Yeah. And so it's CLCH who run that. Yeah. And we had a conversation with him the other day, and we told him what was going on the whole side of the county in terms of running stable courses in the everyone active centre there, and they said that when they get themselves together, and they're very behind at the moment, when they get themselves together, they would like to do something like that in the everyone active. So it's something it's a bit of a vision at the moment as opposed to reality. Oh, okay.
Yes, sorry, I was being very enthusiastic because.
Yes, they're on that side of the county, in the north of Hertfordshire. Yeah. They're a bit further ahead because they've got a different provider. CLCH is so behind in their physio division at the moment, they're sending people to Berkhamsted for private physios on the NHS because they're so behind. So they are having to get themselves back into a better state.
So yeah, this is our vision. It's the vision, the hub. And it means that what we can do is develop in that one place a more community-focused health service. This is what we're looking to do with the health service. But also, and this is where the transport issue comes in, we're trying to have one place so that we can organise perhaps more community transport for groups so that people don't have to worry about getting there. I've got this money at the moment, as I say, that's coming in, and I've been told more or less I'm going to get it, that I'm going to focus a little project on transport and see what we can do at looking at what we've got available in the community.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem, that's fine. The lady over there in the lovely pink, because my vision's not.
Hello, I'm Kathy. Are you going to reach out to newly diagnosed patients, or how will you get to the ones that have been on the books for years but have dropped through the net? I've got two friends, one's got a husband, one's got a mother, and however many times I say when the next meeting is and you really should come, there's all this support, but because they're almost just under the GP, nobody's getting them involved and they haven't got instigation to get going themselves. How are we going to get all the ones sitting out there to be interested? The other thing is Dinoride was very useful for my husband to get him. You did have to book, and sometimes you were told there wasn't a vacancy for that journey, but Dinoride was very successful getting him to Woodside.
So I'll answer your first question. Rose and I have been talking. So the key to this is really our consultants often. They're the GPs are secondary care. They can't diagnose, they can't change medication, and it does come from the consultant. We've been doing, for years, we've been trying endlessly to get consultants with different methods to sort of make these referrals. Okay, so we haven't cracked it yet. We do have an app that they're trialling, and it had a bit of problem where the consultant can just quickly refer to Parkinson's UK very quickly. What they're saying is they can't carry things around with them, and that's what they have the problem of. being in different rooms at different times, and they don't have the literature to just hand something out, and it becomes challenging. But there is this app now that we're encouraging. We piloted in some hospitals, we're getting more hospitals on board with it, and in effect what the consultant can do with a click of a thing on, like a switch on their mobile, they can make a referral to Parkinson's UK, and that person is then generated into a referral, and they ask for specific things that they want on a more local level, and that's not going to be around to everywhere for quite a while because we had some blips with it. A lot of hospitals wouldn't do it, simply because of the data protection, of their systems not working with ours, and so we've had some challenges. But in this county, we are working, so in your part of the county particularly, we're working really closely with the Watford General. So we've done an awful lot of work with them because we've had some real challenging situations, which I'm not going to talk about here because these are people's personal stories. But as a result of some incidents that happened, it was escalated up to the CEO. We did it really quickly. It was a year and a bit ago actually. And we insisted that some action was taken because it was, even now we're hearing stories that are not good, but it's improved hugely. So there's lots going on, and I will get on to your point in a moment because it sort of comes around from the little story. We've been in touch with the CEO, we have regular meetings with the CEO. Parkinson's Nurse has a great manager now, which means when they have a better manager, it means that we get an inroad and we're not just being listened to with fingers in ears, they're actually listening to take action. We've recommended lots of things to happen. They have gone on to an online pharmacy system, which has helped a great deal, so they can track when doses of medication are missed now, and that has been much better because what that means is it generates a report when people's meds are late, and as you know, they shouldn't be. The nurse has got another nurse, so they're called an allied health professional, so there's a second there now, Jack. That's as a result of the work that we've done with Watford General. We didn't think we'd get that, did we? But we have, and he has a physio background. So he's working alongside Mandy, and he's working alongside Shiny as well. So there's 3 of them now, although it's only 2 full-time posts. And they're actually able to now look at this work that we want them to do, this education work, this going onto the wards. It's being much easier for them. And the reports are coming back in that it's improving a great deal. We're pleased to know that we're going to have no harm champions. So basically they've got champions in the wards. Parkinson's patients are going to be amongst their patients, and this is when it's critical for patients to get their medication or have some sort of treatment at time critical intervals. And so those patients have got this member of staff now that look after them, that look out for those things happening. I think it's quite new, and they've had a couple of meetings, and we will become involved with them. Once they bed in, we will become involved and look at their development and work with them, and they'll have an opportunity to have meetings with probably people that have had bad experiences in hospitals so that we can make them aware of what can go wrong. So this is all happening at Watford General. Right, Jack's recent. He's about October, isn't he? Shiny's been a while, but all she does is backfill one day of 6. Mandy wanted to just work 4 days. Shiny does the 5th day. But what?
Yeah, I think what Shiny does is she goes around finding patients with Parkinson's because there's no automatic system for them to really help.
So we're working, and we're also working now and starting to work with looking at A&E, because we know that people really often wouldn't go in if the medication was given in A&E, and then what happens is the symptoms look more pronounced because they've not had their meds on time, if they've had them on time and their meds are not allowed, you're not allowed to self-medicate in A&E. So there's going to be a process that we'll start working on that as well with them now. We're also talking about self-management of medication and also the role of the family care on the ward. So that the people are mobilised a lot more. What happens, you know, you're a patient, they expect you to stay in bed because it's the worst thing you can do if you have Parkinson. You don't want to be sitting there unless you're really ill with something else, of course. But people should be mobilising, and this is what we're working on now, this policy to let people mobilise in the ward and actually get some input from a physio quite quickly. And this is all about cost, and of course we've got to sort of sell to them the cost benefits, because what they don't want is patients staying in another 2 weeks, and that's what's happening at the moment. Well, so we think the message is getting through, and it's slowly we're getting what we need there. What I would say is it was a hospital that was, and it's a hospital that's like that now, and we want it there, and that's what we're aiming for. So in answer to this lady that just asked about newly diagnosed, we are now actually working with the hospital. We've just got a brand new Parkinson's pack. We want it as a matter of course that people going into that consulting room get that pack. That's what we're aiming to have at that hospital. There's going to be, we're trying to get a protocol written up so that, because what happens is if it's just left to, will you do it? Often, because of all this procedural stuff, it doesn't get done in a hospital. That's just the fact. It has to be written into something for it to be taken on. So that's what I think we're going to be working on with the hospital next. So they'll have a nice pack. All patients will get them. Rose has negotiated with your provider in the community that every patient gets a pack as well. So we're going to be incorporating your lovely sort of calendar yearbook with a nice shiny new pack that Parkinson's has produced. And that's going to go out shortly, isn't it?
And what you're saying about somebody who's not in the system, I haven't realised how many people who work don't have a neurologist, they just care for their GP. When we were speaking to CRCH the other day, they were saying this, and they put forward a business case for another nurse, and also a consultant, because they want to pick up the people who haven't got a consultant and provide that consultant out of CRCH. So I think the best thing they can do is ask their GP to refer them to Hearts and Neuro Service, because then they can be picked up by the they do this thing, they're not just having nurses, they're having a Parkinson's specialist professional who does the same job as a nurse, but sometimes they're not ex-physios, senior, and they can also learn to prescribe. So they're obviously, we've got one of those in Hearts and Neuro Service, they're putting in for another. But if those people get referred by their GP to Hearts and Neuro Service and see the equivalent of this, they have access to physio, they get our book, so it's that's where I'll say to start. I mean, now you can get a consultant when they get a funding for that.
Are you taking along a system at Wellness Clinic and healthcare systems? Are they part of this project to implement this?
So we work with Emma Pope, who is the manager for the Parkinson's nurses. We're working with the Parkinson's nurses as well. Jack, I'm not allowed to call him a nurse, I got slapped on the wrist for that the other day. He's an allied health professional, but he will end up being a prescriber, so he will be able to prescribe. Mandy, there's various clinicians there, so we have, they'll often have, it's a mixture really, because not all the same people go all the time, do they? But they have some of the ward staff there as well. What we're trying to do there is have Parkinson's training as a mandatory item, so that we have extensive training, and that's what we're trying to achieve, to have that on have it on the curriculum. It's a bit red tapey with their because they've got so much mandatory training. That's training they have to have. they don't want to put Parkinson's training on it as a mandatory because they've got their block booked with tons of things they have to do.
I would say they have been doing lots of training, but it's been on an ad hoc basis. They've been going around the woods doing it. I would say anybody has any experiences, good or negative, and if there's a negative experience in hospitals, you should complain because they don't learn otherwise. And if people don't complain, they don't know. When my mum was in just recently, Emma referred me to the carers, yeah, carers teams. They are really invaluable if anyone ends up in Watford and you need some support, if you can't get hold of them the pots, if you're not, they're really good. And what I was going to say is, when new people come in, or when people are admitted with Parkinson's, that team need to know about Parkinson's patients as well, because they are really, really helpful. There's only 2 of them, and there's posters of them all around the hospital, but they're really, really.
So the carers.
It's a team they're called carers. Yeah, carers. Carers advisors. I can't remember the name of the job title.
Yes, she named one. Yes,
I was there day and night, and they were actually giving me food vouchers because they were saying to me, you know, you need to get away from your mum's bed and go down and get something to eat. And they were like a lifeline to me because I was just sitting there the whole time. And the other thing was saying about ongoing training, what's that? Because of so many incidents with my mum, what Mandy ended up doing to the team, to the ward my mum was in, she was doing WhatsApp video training with the medication because it was so horrendous for 5 weeks, and she had to do a number of those while my mum was in to try and get the staff to understand. They are to Delta regularly doing is putting together a leaflet so that when somebody goes in, they can get a leaflet to say, this is what you can expect. And things like a carer's person will be there, things like, you know, the nurses have to help them. But even the clock above the bed that they've got with the times of the tablets, still not looking at it, still not adjusted. You know, and then we did my mum's with a red marker pen. They then all the food type thing, they gave me a big pen and I had to stick that off the bed. Because obviously exercise is important, but also eating and drinking is so important in the hospital. Yeah, but it's just a horrific experience.
And I know and thank you for sharing your story because I know it's really personal to you. You said that it was way back about 5 months ago. So we're really hoping, unless Emma is giving us a completely lot of rubbish, that these things are improving. As we said, Jack's coming, it's radically reformed the team because obviously there's now double. And you can see a difference because I'll be really honest, Mandy always looked quite tired in the role, and she actually now seems, there's an energy in the team, isn't there? For sure. They are also working closely with the community now because we've said all along, why are you not working more joined up with the community? Yes.
She needs support, she needs an admin, otherwise you're going to lose her, might be lost in it, might be lost in this, and before, anyway, yeah, so that's the team they put in front of us, she needs admin support, she just hasn't got the time to do what she wants to do.
And we're knowing February that Rose will tell me straight away that the bid's in for quite a considerable amount of resource, and we're really hoping that they get that. Now, if that fails, they have the next stage, which is coming to us for money, because we are now funding nurses again. So we're funding it's up to 2 years of a post, but it has to be that when our funding runs out, they have to guarantee they're not just going to get rid of them. They have to say that they sign a contract in effect. So if that fails, then they've got us as well.
And if we then have that, we have Mandy, Jack, Amy and one more, we actually at last got the number we should have.
Yes.
Is there any link up when patients go to Memory House? Because Watford is a hospital trust, and Memory House is community trust, and there's no notes apart from discharge slip that goes over. Are you hoping to do any work and take Memory House or
They are now working together, so they're all working together much more. Emma and I think Deborah actually, so these are the managers of the services. Emma of Mandy's service in the hospital, Mandy and Jack, and then Deborah is Amy's manager. They seem to have quite a lot of what I would call, they're quite sensible, that they need each other, and they are doing more. I'd like to see it better because it's hit and miss whether they're both at the same meeting or not, and I really want to push them to stop, because there was, you know, there's one meeting Amy's there and the next meeting she's not, and it needs to be quite seamless. You know, we want both of the sets, the community and the hospital, referring into our physical activity, using what expertise we've got much, much more than they do. You know, and it's a bit piecemeal at the moment, and we want to make us integrated into what they do. And actually the new integrated care boards, this is exactly what they said has to happen. So you now have integrated care boards. You've got Hertfordshire and West Essex Integrated Health Board. So you're probably clinical commissioning group, do you know that? They're now being replaced. Yeah, so they were replaced last July, and with a remit, a specialist remit, that they have to work with the community more. They have to use what's out there. It's not an option, and they have to share money as well. Some are a bit more on board and a bit more forward than others, and I've issued an invite to go and meet mine, and so far they haven't said yes, so we might be struggling a bit with them. So I just want to finish, I've been going on a little bit. I'm going to finish another personal thing, and then if you want to ask me any questions. So my son was born severely deformed from the knee down, and it was heartbreaking. 15 operations later, the legs got straighter, much better. He went to university, had a whale of a time, came back home, decided to start rowing, was in his squad one day, got out the boat, they could see that he was a little bit, sort of his legs weren't quite right. Asked him to go and try out for the Paralympic team, and he was in the Paralympic team for 8 years. Won gold, not at the Olympics, just so at the World Champions. Has met loads of Steve Redgrave, Matthew Pinson, meets them all the time. Yeah. And he's given big talks, and he's had a lot of great experiences from that. So although I started off, it was a bit, I said to him once, I'm so sorry you were squashed up and your legs were deformed, and I was a bit sort of mummy, tearful, Mother's Day. I went, Mum, don't be daft, look at the experiences I've had, just because that happened. He said, I couldn't replicate that anywhere. No one would have given that opportunity to me. So I thought, okay, phew, it's not what I would have wanted, but yeah. So I've got a picture of him in his Team GB, outfit, lycra thing, with his medal, so I'm very proud. So is there anything anyone wants to ask me about any of what I've said, or feel free to wake up now?
He started his Parkinson's 20 years ago, and after he'd had it about 5 years, the neurologist said he didn't think it was worth his while coming to the hospital anymore because they couldn't do anything for him. And that really knocked the head off my husband, to be told that he was useless, you know. And I'm so pleased that you're doing all this for the Parkinson's, and will make an awful lot of difference to them.
I just wanted to say, well, thank you so much, but I just also wanted to say that my role is to be local, but nationally there's lots going on. What we have is now a group, because we know that medication is vitally important to be on time. And when we say on time, it's no more than half an hour late or half an hour early. That's the sort of guidance. We have got a steering group that is looking at this, and one of the things that we have decided, and I quite agree with it actually, that our terminology needs to be more medical. They don't listen if it isn't. And so it is going to be called critical medicines management now, not get it on time, because that's how the health service talk about it. And if you think about it, I mean, I've never thought about it, but get it on time does sort of have a bit of a casual ring to it. And so all of these things are being looked at. We're looking at trying to get good processes in hospitals, so all of the elements. And I'll talk about the acute more, because once you've got there, there's a lot wrong then if you're in hospital. If you're being managed in the community, you can be managed for a long time, but generally people who end up in hospital, not always because of something to do with Parkinson's. It might be that they need a knee replacement or they've fallen over. And actually this is a time when you need it to be absolutely spot on, because we know that it's costing the NHS hundreds and it's going to millions a year when patients are not looked up. So it's really important that we're getting this right. But there is national things happening, but we're doing the local bit as well. So hopefully we'll get some good practice all around from all what we're doing.
Can I just add that when my husband was in hospital with his Parkinson's, they didn't have any tablets in the whole of the hospital. I used to have to go and get his tablets from the doctor to take to the hospital, and there was 3 men in his ward with Parkinson's, and I think that was really, he had a whole week where I'd done that for him, and he was in there 6 weeks, and I think that's really sad that I had to go to the doctor first so he could have his tablets.
And that's atrocious, and we're really hoping that that's not happening now and that that's better, of course.
Well, my mum came out on the 29th of September and I was having to take medication as well, pregabalin and the carbidopa. And the problem they had, the mums in those 5 weeks, was they didn't have the right milligram tablet. So they would get a stock from their nursing quarters, and the nurses couldn't multiply a 12.5 times whatever to give my mum the right medication. They weren't aware that there was a slow release medication overnight, so what they ended up doing was giving mum slow release medication throughout the day. I found it, I spotted it, I just saw the colour of the tablet, and in a bit of rage I got them to unlock the bedside metal cabinet. They opened it up, my mum had been in there 11 nights, so there should have been 11 tablets gone, and there were 39 tablets gone out of this pack of 56. But not only that, Emma said to me this wouldn't have happened, but she knows it does now because of what happened. In that metal box were 3 packets of 56 tablets CR prescribed for my mum within days of each other. Because when I said to Emma, I wanted to open that because I know there's more than 1 packet of CR in there, she told me it wouldn't. The pharmacy here at Watford would not be able to issue your mum with more than the 1 box of tablets. Well, I proved them wrong, opened it up. All 3 boxes had been opened. There was a tablet out of this,
Wow.
tablet out of this. There were loose blisters in there. In total, rather than 11 tablets gone, there were 39 tablets gone. And then when we worked out in the ward, mum had to have, or home, we called it 2 tablets at 6 a.m. So that meant, because they hadn't got right to my measuring, it mum had to have 4. Then nurses couldn't multiply the quantity, the milligram to get to the right dose for me.
Oh, it sounds
And
horrendous.
now we came out on the 29th of September, so I do hope things change. I've now done there's this respect hall now. I don't know what it used to be called, but my mum's wishes are never
appalling, and that it's a shame in a way if what Emma is saying is correct, that it wasn't slightly later when Jack came in, because I think hopefully the experience will be different. But as Rose says, some very brave people put down in paper what had happened in the hospital that was very unpleasant, and we were really shocked. And as a result, lots of this stuff started to kickstart this interest in getting things right. So it's dawn, isn't it? I know that it's really painful to tell stories, but we know now that they work. We know that those experiences, we wouldn't want you to have them. We'd rather there's no stories, of course we would. But those stories are going somewhere now, particularly Watford General, because we've got very close contact with the CEO, and we will not tolerate that happening in the hospital anymore. And actually, if you do decide that you're going to take that forward, then we would then, because you, and with your permission, say we know about it, and what is good, how are they guaranteeing this one? Because we've got an example then.
They kept meeting me and they kept saying, thank you for telling us, thank you, because if we don't know about it, we can't get it right. And then the next day the same thing would happen again. Like taking my mum to the toilet, everybody, I had to see, well, I've seen everybody in that hospital because I wouldn't let it rest. And someone that can't walk properly is on a frame, badly walking as my mum should never be left in the toilet alone. Someone should stand outside the door. I even went in the toilet to time, Emma stood outside and let me go in the toilet to time how long it was till that light went out, till my mum was left on her own in the dark and fell. And then they said, what was it? What's not sister, the matron, I had to meet with the matron. And she said to me, Dawn, we've got a process in place, anybody on a frame or in a wheelchair will not be left. Because I said, I've worked in care, you stand outside the door, you don't walk off and leave someone, you give them their privacy. They said they'd implemented it. A few days later, I was left in the toilet on my own again, and I was disappeared.
Well, do put it in writing, because it will make a difference, for sure. And we can then do something with it, because we can't go to them and say, we've got this example if we don't have it.
They've had bullet points from me, but because I'm full on with my mum, and I can't leave her, I haven't got time to leave, and I want to do it properly, you know. The other thing I wanted to know,
Do it properly, because then it goes beyond Emma.
Yeah.
It goes, because we are meeting with the chief nurse, and I think he's
well, I've had
keeping
the head of radiography with me because of the wrong x-rays that we've got on my mum's file. I'm looking at the wrong pelvic x-ray, telling my mum she's fine, she's got a broken pelvis. But with GPs, because what we were saying earlier, my mum was never under a neurologist until last year. She was just under care of the elderly. How can we get GPs to sit up and listen and refer people to a neurologist? They've got Parkinson's patients in their surgery. How can we push them to refer them to a neurologist? Because I've had to beg, and it was Liz who helped me, the previous community nurse, that wrote a very strong letter. But even then, radiologic, why don't they want to refer Parkinson's patients to neurologists? Why don't they want to do it?
I can't answer that, because actually a neurologist should be the only one that actually diagnoses the patient.
2016, when she had was care of the elderly.
They do that, is that Dr. Whiskey, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
He sees lots of people with Parkinson's. It's a question you should ask.
Yeah.
All of his patients,
That would be a good person you can ask these questions to. If we come to our ADO next week, next month, our president is starting to talk. He says have a talk. So you can ask him these questions.
Yeah.
People ask me these questions.
Dr. Riz's clinic is jam-packed and held at Kennel and Watford, and we used to have to wait and we'd get our appointments get shifted all the time. He's got a massive clinic and it was all Parkinson's patients.
Is it just guidelines that they use to see a neurologist?
You need to, a GP can't undiagnosed. It doesn't necessarily state that. It said they should have specialist input, and I think yearly. I will need to go back and look at that.
so we couldn't get access to Mandy.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, yeah, yes, they can as well. Yes, either the neurologist or not biologist. Yeah.
Can I just give a pat on the back to Pals? By chance, I was having a blood sample for myself, bumped into a wife of somebody who has Parkinson, who is known to us. He was in an absolute state because our husband had fallen in the carers went just everything's going on at home. And Mandy wasn't on duty that day, and the lady on reception said, go and knock on Pals. The reception we got it was a gentleman, Andrew, I think his name was, who couldn't have done us more.
Oh, that's great.
He had the ability to negotiate with other managers. I always thought Pals was the hospital, that your relative was in there in general. This guy was in the community and within 40 hours he had been taken on to this one. The relief to that our friend and the daughter's was immense. That was all due to a chance not. So there is some good in what the
Yeah.
Do you have instructions for people when you go into hospital? So, for example, you shouldn't leave your medication. So they're developing a separate leaflet for people who go in when they go into hospital with Parkinson's, and that's the sort of thing. And where does it drop at the moment? You see, so yeah. Because the language is just leaving our medication. Right. We need to have. I think we need to have all that music. I haven't seen it yet. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. I bet you're all wanting a cup of tea. Yeah,
We had a cup of tea.
Or you're all wanting to have a chat to each other. Oh yes.
I don't want to ask anything, I just want to tell you my experience. I was diagnosed in 2013.
Do you want this?
Okay. And at my GP, he said you can go to Watford in 10 weeks, Barnet in 6 weeks, or Queen Square in 3 weeks. So I went to Queen Square, and I was lucky enough to get Dr. Corey Barrow as my consultant, and I've seen him regularly ever since, every 6 months. And I now see him at Watford because I find it difficult travelling to Queen Square, and he said he would see me at Watford. And I just feel I've had the best experience that I could have had when I hear everybody else's. And he told me to come to this group. Yeah. But the first time I saw him, I'd already suspected that I'd got Parkinson's because my cousin had had it also. And he said to me, what do you think it is? And I said, I think it's Parkinson's. And he said, yes, you're right. And he put me on medication straight away, which was wonderful. And then the next year, I went into Mount Vernon to have a knee replacement. And they let me self-medicate, which is something that you don't hear at all.
Well, you shouldn't class yourself as lucky. That's what it should be. You're just fortunate that it went the way it should, and other people don't get that.
That's right. I just wanted to say that there is good, and it does happen right at times. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. The M1 does beckon me now.
Thank you very much to Julie, especially for stepping in at the last minute into the breach. That's a very good speaker. Well done, Julie.
All my last two and more, you are getting a lot of one, because there's just so much going on that we need to do.
Thank you.
It's more noticeable.
All the cameras. Yes, I saw that. We have church services. They are Zoom apps to YouTube on a Sunday. And the lady actually controls the system. You can actually go senior boss came into the room. There was a chapel with who was my living class. It was just like and he said, right, I want you to give a lecture on so and so. You're a local expert. And the local expert said, half of their lecture at university. Anybody else?